Hello, everybody. We're going to talk about how to protect our parts with personal protective equipment. And we're going to talk about some of the basics of what PPE is, how to use it, and create an awareness about its importance. So it could be any type of equipment that we're going to talk about could protect your eyes, your hearing, could protect your head, your hands, or respiratory protection. We're going to talk about some of those and why that's important, some of the basics of why that's important to protect yourself, and how we can avoid accident and injury if we wear it properly. So we'll go through that today. There are some scary statistics out there. So in the United States, there's about 2 million work-related injuries, and this is on an annual basis, and about a quarter of those are to the head, the eyes, the hands, or feet. Those are things that PPE can possibly prevent an injury to those things. Eye injuries and hand cuts and things like that can possibly prevent those. Looking at this, OSHA looks at accidents. They try to figure out, what went on, what are the trends, what can we learn from it. When it comes to PPE, there's a few things they learned. They learned that with hard hats, the head injuries, there was only 16% of the time that hard hats were worn. And with foot injuries, 23% of times safety shoes were being worn. And with eye injuries, only 40% had eye protection on at the time with the eye injuries. So it just makes you think, what if for that other 60% of eye injuries, if people were wearing their safety glasses or goggles or face shields, would there have been that many eye injuries? And it comes down to that. It comes down to, PPE is there, it's available, but we need to wear it. And if we wear it, it can prevent injuries to our bodies. So that's something we need to think about. What is PPE? We talk about that. That's the acronym for personal protective equipment. And it's any type of equipment that we use to protect those different parts of our body, whether it's our head or eyes or hearing or hands, things like that. So we're going to talk about those today and how to prevent that. PPE really is a barrier between us and the hazard. So we can control hazards, we can eliminate them, we can make the job site more safe. But if we can't, then PPE is our last line of defense. It's that last barrier to keep us from getting injured or having exposure to a hazard. There is no perfect PPE, though. It's not 100% fail-safe. There could always still be injuries and things that happen. But if we wear it, we're more likely to prevent injury, such as wearing safety glasses. If you have flying particles in the air or metal shavings or chips that are flying around, wearing safety glasses can prevent it from getting into your eye. That is your last line of defense. And so it's important that we wear that, and important that we have it and that we use it to protect ourselves and not get injured in certain ways. There's lots of different types of PPE. We're going to talk about some of these: eye and face protection, head protection, hand protection, foot protection. We'll also talk about respiratory protection and go into some basics on that. Hearing protection, we'll talk about the importance of protecting your hearing, and also whole body protection. That might be the type of clothing that you wear, or some type of suit or coveralls or things that can protect you from accident and injury to your body. So many different types, and we'll hit on some of those today. Just think about these as you go through. Think about the type of work you do, and think about which ones you might need to protect yourself to prevent injury on the job. There is some limitations with PPE. There's some things that it can't protect us from, and we'll talk about some of these. One of those is non-use. If you don't wear it, it's not going to do you any good. If it's just sitting in your truck or in the office and you don't take it with you on the job and you don't wear it properly, then it's really going to do you no good. So it is important that you do wear it. So this guy here, he's got his safety goggles on, which is good. He's got his safety goggles, but he's not wearing them properly, so he's misusing them. So we have to have it, and if we are wearing it, we need to wear it in the right way. Make sure that it fits us properly, make sure it's all put on properly, and make sure that we're doing it the right way there. Sometimes there's improper selection. There's all different types of PPE, and if we have the wrong kind, it may not give us the adequate protection that we need for it. So the way we wear it, the way it wears out, that's something to think about. There's also permeation and penetration. Some types of gloves, for example, have different types of permeation or chemical use. And so we have to understand, the different selection types. We need to get the right kind and make sure we understand that so we have the protection. There's breakthrough time, and it can also degrade over time. They can wear out and become not as effective to wear. So those are some of the limitations of PPE. But we'll look at some more examples there of how to get the right kind. The key is you have to evaluate the job. You have to see, what kind of hazard you're going to get into. You have to think through that and know what you're going to be working around to make sure that you get the right PPE for the job to protect you. there are selection guides. There's all different types. And there are experts out there that can guide you on getting the right kind for a certain chemical that you're working around or a certain hazard that you're working around. There's many different sizes and features and protections that they offer, but you have to go through and get the right selection to protect yourself. So chemical gloves is an example of that. And here's a little chart that just shows several of the different types of chemical gloves that are out there. They're designed to be used for certain chemicals. Some are going to protect better than others. Some have different degradation ratings. They have different permeation ratings. And there's all this information out there from experts to help you get the right kind to fit the work that you're doing to protect yourself. And these are just a few of the types of gloves. There's also many other types of gloves out there, such as leather gloves, Kevlar, cut-resistant gloves. There's many different types, but based on the job, you want to get the kind that's best for you to protect yourself. And this goes for hard hats, for respirators, for all different types of PPE. There's many different sizes and shapes and types and features that you want to get to fit you for the job. So the worker's responsibility. What's our responsibility? Well, we need to wear PPE when it's required. So if it's required for a certain hazard or a certain task, or if your company has a policy that says you have to wear certain PPE, then that's required. It's up to you to follow those rules and wear that when it's required there. It's also up to you to use the PPE as intended. So like the guy with the safety goggles on his forehead, yeah, he was wearing his PPE, but it wasn't going to do him any protection with not wearing it properly. So same with this person on the motorcycle here, wearing a helmet. Yeah, she's got her helmet on, but as you can see, it's on the wrong way. And if she were to fall or hit her head, that's not going to give her the protection it needs because that's not the way it's designed and intended. So we have to wear it. We have to use it as intended. We also have to keep our equipment clean and sanitary. You don't want to keep it dirty and dusty and covered in chemicals or anything that's going to create more of a problem or something that might wear that out more over time and not make it as effective. So take care of it. Keep it in a good, clean, dry, safe location. And if there's any problems with it, if you find that the PPE is not protecting you as it needs to, if it doesn't fit right, if it's the wrong type or the wrong kind, wrong size, report that and get the right kind to protect yourself. Take the priority, make it a priority to keep yourself safe. One of the things you can do is every time before you use any equipment, any PPE, is give it a good inspection. Just make sure it's in good condition. See that it can really protect you the way that it needs, that it fits right, that it's all, going to do the protection that it needs. So, for example, gloves. Let's say you're working with some chemicals and you pick up some gloves to put on before you get exposed to that chemical. Let's say there's a little tear in it. Simple inspection would see that tear or would see that it's wearing out, and you can, get you a new pair and protect yourself. But a single inspection before use is something you can always do, and that's a really good help for you. Some PPE is really only designated for single use. It could be a one-time use, and if that's the case, if that's what the manufacturer says, that's really what it is. It's a one-time use. So you might use it one time and think, oh, it's still good, it's clean, but you know what? If it's only designed for that, that's the way it needs to be. You throw it away, you get rid of it, and you get a new pair to use. So follow the recommendations from the manufacturers and always give it an inspection before you use any type of personal protective equipment. When it comes to training, what kind of things do employees need to be trained on? Part of that is knowing when PPE is necessary for what tasks and jobs and hazards and what kind they need to have, what type of PPE is necessary for the job. The employees should all be trained on that. There should also be training on how to properly put it on and take it off. They call that to don and doff the equipment. There are certain ways to do that that's more effective and safer to do that and to make them fit the right way, to get them adjusted. They should be trained on how to make that fit them properly. They should also be trained on the limitations of the PPE, what to watch for, proper care, proper maintenance, the disposal of it, how to take care of it when it's done. Those are all parts of training that employees should have on PPE. So what is the most important PPE out there? What's the most important thing? Well, we see a lot of eye injuries, and so eye protection is probably the most important thing. Just a simple pair of ANSI-rated safety glasses, which is an ANSI rating of Z87. You'll see that on the frame of your glasses. That's one of the most important things you can have to protect yourself. Really, anybody working outside of an office, working in the outdoors, really should have a pair of safety glasses available. There's lots of things that can get into our eyes, dust, chemicals, things that could splash in your eyes. It's really important you have that And then obviously the right shades for the welding and cutting. You'll need to have protection from getting burn in your eyes from that. So having eye protection is probably the most important kind. There's several different kinds of that. There's eye and face protection, and based on the type of work you're doing, you may want to have that face shield. Now, if a face shield is required, it's important to note that safety glasses or safety goggles are also required. So if you're working with a chemical that could splash in your eyes, you would have your safety goggles on, and that would be underneath the face shield. You'd also be wearing a face shield. If there's flying particles or things that can get in your eyes, wood chips or anything like that in the air, safety glasses and then your face shield over the top. That's the intended way to get your eye and face protection. So if you're grinding, working with anything flying, metal shavings or things like that at a grinding wheel, you're going to have that face shield and safety glasses on. So when it comes to head protection, there's different types. There's really two main types. Type 1, this is for vertical drop hazard. So this is where something could fall on top of your head. And this is the hard hat pictured here, where you have a suspension inside that rests on your head, and when something falls on the hard hat, it absorbs that impact and protects your head from having that injury. So that's a Type 1 hard hat. Type 2 are the type where you could bump your head on something. This is where you have a vertical or a lateral impact. They're bump caps and things like that, where you might bump your head sideways. A little bit different design, but they have different intended uses on the head protection there. So if you want to know what type of hard hat you have and to make sure you have the right kind, there's labels just like this one on the inside of your hard hat. It's a little sticker that if you turn your hard hat upside down, you'll see it in there. And it will tell you information about the hard hat, such as the manufacturer. It will tell you the date that the hard hat was made. And a lot of times these hard hats are good for only 5 years, but your manufacturer may have notification on it that says how long it's good for. So you can check that and make sure that your hard hat is still good to use, that it's safe to use. It will tell you the type. We'll say what type of hard hat it is, and there's different classes of hard hats as well, such as those that work around electricity that are non-conductive. So you can see that type. You can get some information and refer to the manufacturer on information about the hard hat. And again, if it's past its date of recommended use, it's time to throw that hard hat away and get a new one. So check the dates, make sure you're current, and get the right hard hat for the job. Foot protection is another thing. So if there's anything that's really heavy that could fall on top of your foot, or objects that could smash your foot, that's where you're going to need some foot protection. Something that could roll over the top of your foot, or even if you stepped on something really sharp that could pierce the sole of your shoe, such as maybe a nail sticking out, that's where you're going to need some foot protection. And there's many different types of that. Here we have a picture of a safety boot. A lot of times they have a steel or composite toe in them that protects the top of your toes. There's also other guards and things that you can get added onto these. They have puncture-resistant soles, metal-free for electrical applications. There's many different types that are there. But for general work outside, public works type jobs, construction jobs, you're going to want a safety steel-toe boot to protect yourself. They also make shoes. Shoes with safety features in them, such as composite toes and things like that. Get the right type of shoe that you need to protect yourself. And there will be a little rating on the inside of those, an ASTM rating that shows you that foot protection meets the requirements for the standards to protect yourself. But you have to wear them. If you don't want your foot to get hurt, if you're around things that could hurt them, obviously that's where you wear your right type of shoes, right type of PPE. Hearing protection. This is something that's often overlooked. A lot of times we work around loud things and we don't realize that over time we could be damaging our hearing. The problem with hearing is that it's so essential to life. We get so used to hearing things, and you can hear me on this webinar, but imagine what life would be like if you couldn't hear. If you, over time, were around loud noises and exposed to that on a regular basis, that you could lose your hearing, and that can affect you socially. It could be really hard to have a conversation in a group. You might feel isolated because you can't hear what's going on. You can imagine how that would feel if you can't hear your kids or your grandkids. It can be really hard. And so protecting your hearing is a very important thing, and it's often overlooked, and we just want to make a reminder about that. Over time, as you're around loud noises, and over time as you age with loud noise, it deteriorates the hair cells inside the inner parts of your ear, which lead to the nerve impulses that send signals to your brain and allow you to hear certain sounds. And so what happens is it's a permanent loss. Once you have hearing damage, once you have hearing loss, That is a permanent loss that can't be repaired. And so you don't want to take a chance on that. It's important to know what sounds you're working around. If there's loud noises, if there's high decibel noise, you want to know those kind of things to protect yourself. So as an example, a normal conversation with somebody, you're looking at about 60 to 70 decibels is kind of the range that you're there. City traffic, about 85. Running a power mower is over 100, maybe 107 decibels, gets a little louder. Rock concerts, 120 decibels, and rifle shot, single rifle shot could be up to 163 decibels. So that gives you kind of a range there. But where do we need to be protected? So where OSHA comes in at is around the 85 decibel range. So at 85 decibels and higher, if you are exposed to 85 for an 8-hour day for a total of 8 hours, that's where there could be some possible hearing damage, and that's where you're going to need protection. So if you're exposed to a really loud noise, let's say you're running a power mower for a few hours, still it's going to require that hearing protection, because even though it's a shorter time, it's a higher decibel rating, and there could still be some damage there. So anything over 85 decibels, you're wearing hearing protectors, and they have ratings in them that help you. So it could be earplugs, it could be earmuffs, like the ones that are pictured here, but it's important that you have them with you and that you wear them. And they will have certain ratings on them that can help you get that level of decibels down to below 85 to protect yourself from hearing damage. But the key is, remember that your hearing is important, and it's important that we protect ourselves and wear the hearing protectors. Respiratory protection is another thing, and there's a lot of detail to this one. We actually have another webinar specifically on respiratory protection. If you want more detail, you can go to our website and watch one of those. But there's really some basics that we want to cover today, so you're aware of that. Two major types of respiratory protection. One is an air purifying, and the other is an atmosphere supplying. So the one on the bottom is an air purifying, which has canisters and filters that filter out the contaminants in the air, and it allows you to breathe and do your work while not breathing in some of those contaminants. There's different types of canisters and filters and things that can protect you, so you need to know what you're working around. You need to know what chemicals could be in the air, what vapors, what particulates. It's important to know that kind of stuff so you can get the right type of air purifying respirator. Now, the other type on the left, this is an atmosphere supplying. This is where you have grade D breathing air, which is air that you can breathe, and it's provided inside of that mask where you're not breathing in anything from the outside. You're not breathing any other contaminants in, because that air is provided from that tank, grade D breathing air. So with the air purifying respirator, there's a few things you need to know about. One is having the right filter, getting the right cartridges, the right canisters, having the right type for the hazard that you're working around, the chemical. Now, it does not supply oxygen. It is not providing good, safe breathing air. You are basically breathing in what's in the environment. And so if you're in a confined space where there's a lack of oxygen, this is really going to do no good, because it's not going to provide any good air. It's just filtering out the bad stuff, so that you don't breathe that in and get damage into your lungs from breathing in chemicals or contaminants like that. There's many different types, even dust masks. Those with a filtering face piece in the front of them, they are also considered a particulate respirator. There's different ratings on them, the 95, the 99, and the 100. Those are the ratings on the percentage of protection that you get from wearing those. And there's a lot of information about this. If you need more, we do have a webinar on that with more details there. But the key is wear it. Know what you're working around and wear it. So if you're working around traffic, work vehicles, large heavy equipment, or construction equipment, it's important that you wear your traffic vest. And this is a high visibility safety apparel. It's a reflective vest. And for this type of work, if you're working around this equipment, it's required that you wear a class 2 or 3 vest. And what that means is it's the amount of reflective material that's on the vest that allows you to be a little bit more visible and allows that heavy equipment or that traffic to see you, so that you're less likely to get hit by one of those cars or trucks or machinery. And there's ratings on that. There's certain standards for that, but a class 2 or 3 is the one you need to know for that type of work. So if you're working general public works type jobs, there's kind of a list of basic PPE that you're going to want to have available and ready if you're out on the job site or construction. This is kind of the basics of what you're going to need. And that's having safety glasses, having appropriate clothing on, which could be long pants or the different clothing you need for the job, gloves, safety toe boots, reflective vest, hearing protection, having a hard hat, and possibly some sunscreen for the sun outside to protect you from the sunburn. Those are just some of the basics, and based on the job, you may not need them every day all the time, but you should at least have all of those available to protect yourself from some of those general hazards that you work around. Now, if you're doing landscaping work, it's a little bit more focused task, a little bit different hazard there. So you're going to want some long pants when you're mowing and trimming, because there could be things that are flying around, could cut you or get on your legs. So you want to protect yourself with the right clothing. Face shield when trimming, with things flying around, you want to protect your face. So that's something special you might have for landscape work, in addition to some of those basic types of PPE that we talked about. If you're using a chainsaw, again, there's other specialized things. You're going to want some chaps on. And shorts would not be acceptable with chaps over the top. So in that case, you got to have the right clothing, which would be wearing some long pants with some chaps. And you're going to want a face screen. That face screen can protect you from the flying pieces of wood that you're cutting as the chainsaw is running. Those are some things you're going to want to have. Hearing protection in that case for the loud equipment, loud machinery that you're running, and some of those other basics. But each task could be a little bit different. Even those in law enforcement, totally different risk, totally different exposure to things. They're going to have other specialized types of PPE to use there, such as nitrile gloves. They're going to have them available. Kevlar vest, traffic vest, roadway reflective apparel, and maybe even hearing protection for the firing range. So different types of PPE based on the task that you do. Those working with chemicals or those doing pesticide applications, they're going to have other exposures. Being around the chemical, they're going to want to know what the hazards are. So they're going to go to their SDS, the safety data sheet, and they're going to figure out what chemical, what are the protections they need, what type of respiratory protection do they need. Is there a certain type of gloves to protect them, or an apron or chemical suit? They're going to want to have that kind of information available and know what they're getting into before they go out and doing a pesticide application. So part of that is knowing, being aware of it, and following the directions to protect yourself. It's important to have that right PPE because, again, that's your last line of defense. That's the last thing you have to protect you from the hazard. So what part of your job requires PPE? Part of that is just thinking about it, knowing where you're at risk, seeing what exposures you might have, and taking action to get the right kind of PPE and making sure that you wear it to protect yourself. So think through those things today. What PPE might you need to wear more or better, or do you have the right kind that you need to get? So to summarize, we need to make sure that we assess the hazards. Always assess the hazards so you know what kind you need. Get the right PPE, use those selection guides, go to the experts if you need to, and get the right kind to protect you. But the key with PPE is you have to wear it. We talked about all of those accidents that happened where people were not wearing hard hats, they were not wearing safety glasses and things like that. We have to wear it. It's really not worth having something fly into your eye and losing your eyesight. It's not worth losing your hearing. It's not worth getting a cut on your finger or being exposed to a chemical and having burns on your hands. It's just not worth taking those risks. And PPE can help you if you wear it and you get the right kind. And that's really the awareness we wanted to create today, is to make health and safety a priority for you. It's your life, it's your health, and it's your well-being. So make sure we do use the PPE to protect us. That's really the goal. So with that, Jason, any questions out there that we have?
I don't see any questions right yet, folks. Go ahead and type your questions into the chat box or in the Q&A box as well. I'm just checking to see here. We've got some comments and compliments there. I had a couple of people having some audio issues. If you did have any of those problems, let me know. We're still trying to work through those with WebEx and make sure that they get their stuff taken care of. Unfortunately, we're kind of at their mercy to try to get these problems taken care of, and that's part of the reason why we're going to the YouTube Live. So make sure you sign up for that. Subscribe to our channel there. I'm not seeing questions come in. Brent, what's the most important piece of personal protective equipment?
I think it's the safety glasses. Got to have them, even at home.
Absolutely.
I think it's the brain.
The brain?
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely.
Got to be aware and protect yourself. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, we appreciate, and Debbie said it's the brain. So, or the word think, she says. Folks, we appreciate your attendance here today. Doug's going to be back in a half hour and talking about how to protect the new guy, those seasonal workers that are coming on. And so make sure if you haven't signed up for that, send me an email right now to jason@utahtrust.gov, and I will send you a link back. If you try to sign up, you probably won't get your login information back in time to get in. So send me that email, and we'll get you on there in a half hour. Brent, final word?
Final word, everybody be safe out there today. Make safety a priority. It really is the most important thing. Have a great day.
Awesome. Everybody have a safe day out there. We'll see you soon.